Hello, and welcome back to the 9th Annual ADHD Awareness Expo. My name is Laurie Dupar, and in just a moment, I'm going to be talking to you about the 3 top reasons you may not be able to get started and get things done and what you can do about it. First, I'd like to remind you to stop by the online exhibit hall and to sign up for the free virtual goodie bag filled with surprise gifts from the ADHD Awareness Expo speakers and sponsors. I'd also like to thank Tara for inviting me to be part of this annual event and how proud I am to be a sponsor for this year's ADHD Expo. As I said, my name is Laurie Dupar, and I'm a trained psychiatric nurse practitioner and 15-year veteran ADHD life coach and director of the International ADHD Coach Training Center, where I use my unparalleled expertise in both the neuroscience and behavior management of ADHD to teach emerging ADHD coaches how to help people thrive with ADHD. I frequently speak and present on the topics of ADHD and coaching, and I'm the co-author and editor of the #1 bestseller series, the ADHD Awareness Book Project, with such titles as 365 Ways to Succeed with ADHD, Inspirational Ways to Succeed with ADHD, and Wacky Ways to Succeed with ADHD. You can purchase any of these on Amazon.com. You can also contact me and download my complimentary ebook at coachingforadhd.com. You will get brain surfing and 31 other awesome qualities of ADHD, or you can find out if you have what it takes to be an ADHD life coach by going to the IACT Center at iactcenter.com. So let's get talking about the 3 top reasons you might have trouble getting things done and what you can do about it. So do you feel like you're always playing catch up, missing deadlines, or putting off activities you plan to do for things that are less important? If so, you are not alone. In fact, 20% of individuals identify themselves as having trouble getting things done. And according to researchers, this difficulty has more than quadrupled in the last 30 years. This habit has become so ingrained in our society that some people just think they're born with it. The problem with getting things done is actually more than the fact that we're not getting things done or that we're getting them done at the last minute. It's what it does to our lives. 40% of people that have trouble getting things done really struggle with financial loss, missing professional opportunities, paying extra fees in the long run. It also affects our relationships and our social relationships and our work relationships. Not to mention the accompanying stress, anxiety, which contribute to headaches, sleeplessness, lowered immune system, depression, heart disease, and high blood pressure. It's just no doubt that difficulty getting things done impacts our self-confidence, our satisfaction, and overall happiness. So what do you do if you're having trouble getting things done? Where do you start? And part of the problem is, how do we start to break this all down? Well, over the years, I've found out that really there's one of 3 areas that most people get stuck when they're trying to get things done. People are either have difficulty getting started, keeping going, or finishing a task. So we're going to talk about those 3, and I want you to listen to see where you fit in. So those people that have trouble getting started, typically, these are people that tend to forget that there's actually something that needs to get done, or maybe they get overwhelmed when they try and start something, not knowing exactly where to start. Or another sort of sneaky one is that they tend to be over-preparers. This is kind of a sneaky one because they look like they're so busy, but actually they're not really getting the task done that they want to be. They're just sort of busy doing all the other stuff. The other reason that people have trouble getting started might be biochemical. What I mean by that is that when we have ADHD, we don't get enough dopamine to our brain. And if we wait long enough to sort of that last minute and stress overtakes us, our adrenaline gets activated. When adrenaline gets activated, then dopamine is released in our brain, and voila, it feels like we can get things done. So we really learn to put things off learn to put things off to get them done rather than learning how to do them earlier. So if you're someone that has trouble getting started, get overwhelmed, know you're an over-preparer, or the biochemical example seems to fit for you, first, don't rely on your memory. Our memories were not created to remember such mundane details as we try and keep track of in there. It really was only designed to help us remember what things were going to be of danger to us. If there is what to do if a bear started chasing us, or how to run very quickly or to stand still. That's what our memory was designed for, not to remember all those little fiddly details. So using calendars, planners, I hate to say that, external memory systems would really be your best friend. The other thing is that sometimes we get overwhelmed. That just has to do with the fact that a lot of people with ADHD see things in a global way. So we see the big picture and don't necessarily try and break that down, but it's in breaking it down that can actually be the best trick. So we can do that by just picking one piece, spending some time and completing that. We can also cover up the rest of it, sort of putting everything else away and not even noticing it, and trying not to notice the big picture. An example of that is people who prefer to see a week in front of them, or even just a day in front of them rather than the whole month. You'll know whichever fits with you. The other one is that we tend to over-prepare, and sometimes it feels like if I just can get started, like I can just get my motor going, the rest of it will happen. And the fact is we just sort of get stuck trying to get things ready, and we never actually get on the road. So if you tend to be one of those people that tend to spend time getting prepared, make sure that you allow yourself certain time to get prepared, but only a certain amount of time, and be honest with yourself about how much you're actually getting done and how much you're actually just doing to get prepared to avoid actually sitting down to tackle the task. If you're somebody that noticed or perhaps can suspect that maybe a biochemical issue is at play here, maybe you're not getting enough dopamine in your brain when you're trying to sit down to get something done, you might want to talk to someone who prescribes ADHD medications and see what they might have to say about helping you increase the dopamine that's available for your brain. Some other things to do naturally that help you increase the dopamine to your brain include exercise or activity. Do those before you actually sit down to a task. Those are going to help quite a bit in order to sort of get the motor started in a natural way. Another friend of ours with ADHD is caffeine. It doesn't mean you have to drink a lot of caffeine in order to get that dopamine going, but some people do find it helpful to eat a little bit of chocolate, have a small cup of coffee, or even tea in order to activate that dopamine in our brain. Just some ideas for you if you find that you are one of those people that has trouble getting started. So let's move now to the next area that typically, the second area that typically people get stuck in when they're trying to get things done, and that's keeping going. So the people that have trouble keeping going often will report that they feel bored, or they're concerned that it's going to take too long to do something. So they may get started, but then they just sort of give up because the thought of sticking with it is just physically painful for them. And that's something that those people that don't experience this boredom really need to understand, is that it can be physically painful. When we're bored, it's like slugging through a mental barrier and there's no relief in sight. Physical boredom is very, very painful, and it's very significant, and one of the biggest reasons why sticking with a task can feel like we're never going to get it done. So if you're someone that finds that you get bored, or if that's one of the things that resonates with you, it's essential that you get creative. Know what it is that's interesting to you and sprinkle that in to stave off that boredom. For some people, that might be adding color to a spreadsheet, or it might be doing paperwork in a bustling cafe, or listening to music, or having somebody sit with you while you're trying to get something done. Any of those that kind of break up that boredom and help you knock yourself out and use those. The other thing is that if you feel like something is going to take a lot of time and you notice that that's what happened when you start working on something and sticking with it just feels like a gruel, set yourself a specific amount of time, and just that amount of time, and complete that. And then check in with yourself to see, okay, is this something that I want to continue, or have I done enough now? typically what you're going to find is that it actually wasn't as bad as you thought it was. For whatever reason, sometimes our minds can play tricks on us, and it seems like something's going to take a much, much longer amount of time than it actually will. And once you get started, and give yourself a chance to check to see how far have I gone, and notice that progress, the rest of it becomes a little bit simpler. So let's talk about the final area that a lot of people have trouble with when it comes to getting things done. And that's in finishing up. So you might have started, you might have been going with a task, and then some people just darn, they don't finish up the task. They get very close, but don't finish up. So what is going on with that? What typically is happening with that is that we get distracted. Another one is that I call those people, this is where time optimism sometimes gets in the way. What I mean by that is that we get distracted. We're sticking with the task. We might have even been able to sort of got it done despite ourselves, and then we're almost there, and bam, something else interesting comes in front of us. One of the problems with that is that we're not going to finish the task that we're on. So if you find that you tend to get distracted, one of the best solutions for that is to make sure that you are really clear with yourself about what finishing that task looks like and what is the reward for you when you do it. What I mean by that is it doesn't necessarily mean that you have some sort of fancy party after you're done with something or even a treat, but just know what it is that motivates you to get that done. Is it the feeling of completion that you have? Is it the fact that somebody else is going to notice that you've completed that gives you a lot of incentive to complete that task? Is it that when you're done, you get to move on to the other task? Another simple solution is to write that idea that has come up that threatens to be the distraction for you down, so you won't forget it. You won't feel tempted to go off and do it. It's written down. You know you can tackle it when you're done, and you can finish the project that you're on. Another one, as I mentioned, that tends to be a challenge for people finishing up is what I like to call the time optimist. Simply put, that means that you haven't allowed enough time, right? You've sat down, you've gotten something started, you've actually stayed with it, but then you run out of time. This tends to happen quite a bit if you're someone who's a time optimist. We all know that having challenges with estimating time, knowing how long time something will take, and just the general sense of time is something that is a challenge for people with ADHD. And what happens with the time optimists, we just think we can get a lot more done than we actually can. So one of the strategies to do with that is to actually be honest with yourself. How long does something take to get done? So what you might want to do is start to track those everyday activities that you do to see how long they take. Now, I understand that may not be taking care of some of those extracurriculars or extra things that you do, but oftentimes if we can just have an idea and be really realistic at how long repetitive tasks take, we can apply that same context to other situations. So start to keep track of how long something takes, and then you'll start to notice if something is going to take longer or shorter. Keep track of it. Pad your environment with lots of ways to keep track of time. It's not untypical that I hear people who have challenges with this time optimism not to have any clocks, alarms, or any sorts of timekeeping devices available to them, maybe other than their phone. So make sure that you have clocks just about everywhere you're going to turn in your house. In fact, a lot of my clients, I tell to have them in the garage, in the bathroom, even in the shower, so they know how long something is going to take. And don't let time optimism sort of get the best of you. So, in case you are somebody wanting to get things done, like I said, you're not alone. Over 20% of people struggle with the same challenge with ADHD. We have a few extra things on top of that. And I'm really hoping that listening to this video, you found some solutions that'll help you get things done. So in closing, I want to thank you again for taking time to watch my video And I want to let you know again, the best way to get a hold of me is go to coachingforadhd.com. And if you're interested in finding out more about training to be an ADHD life coach, please visit me at the IACT Center. That's IACT Center.com. And remember to stop by the online exhibit hall and sign up for the free virtual goodie bag if you haven't yet done so. Until later, stay amazing.